So first of all, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're going to be on the phone together for about 30 minutes today. And what I'd like to do with the American Deciders is to have us meet once a month. They're going to be quick calls, and we're going to actually give you work to do. And so what we want to do with this first session is I'm going to introduce you to a couple of people that we'll be working with over the long term. I want to talk about the purpose of the project, and then we're going to get into our first assignment. So first, because I haven't even introduced myself, my name is Erica Payne, and I'm the founder and president of the Patriotic Millionaires. The Patriotic Millionaires, as you know, if you participated in the Great Economy Project, a group of high net worth Americans who are deeply concerned about the destabilizing level of inequality in the country. And the 8-year-old's knocking on my door. Girls, can you go get daddy and see what he needs? Okay. I'm so sorry. I don't know if anybody else out there has kids. Awesome. So the American Deciders, now you've been through the Great Economy Project, so you see how we think the economy is rigged. American Deciders is an opportunity to go beyond learning and move into activism. So we have a big task in front of us to reform this economy. The Patriotic Millionaires look at American Deciders as our partners in progress. How can we use your voices in combination with our voices to get the changes that we need to see at a federal and state level? So once a month, I am going to be here with you talking through what developments we've seen at the federal level around the policies that we're working on and where we think your influence and voice can be most high impact. All of these are things that you are welcome to share with your friends. In an ideal world, you would get your assignments and you would start sharing this information with folks in your communities. And so I am Erica Payne, founder and president of the Patriotic Millionaires. I've got Kat Hatley with me today. Kat, give a brief introduction.
Hey, everyone. I'm the director of the Great Economy Project, and we're so excited that you're here. My background is in activism. I've done a lot of work on tough legislation around food stamp expansion in Michigan, working across the aisle. And so this is kind of my wheelhouse, and I'm excited to share this experience with you and grow and make a new team of activists. So yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. And we are really excited today that we have someone from our lobbying team with us. We have a team of lobbyists who work with us on wage policy, democratic process policies, and tax policy. And Stephen is one of those lobbyists. So he or one of his colleagues will be joining us for each one of these calls. Stephen.
Nice to meet everybody. As Erica said, I work on both tax and minimum wage issues, and we'll be focusing on some wage stuff primarily with this group, but I'm really excited to get working with you all, and I'm really excited to start doing these sessions once a month and really get going on this stuff. But thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And as Kat said, we'll change our next meeting. We won't do it seminar view. This is just how most of our webinars are set up, but we want to build community with you all. We want to hear feedback from you all. I'm going to give you an email address right now, gep@patrioticmillionaires.org. So if you have any comments about this stuff, please send this on. The chat is in. And we've got somebody from Wisconsin. Hi, Pat from Wisconsin. I'd love for y'all to just type in where you're from. We collected it all when you signed up for American Deciders, but that will be relevant. I'd love for you all to see who you're in community with. So let me tell you where we are right now. I want to focus our first set of efforts around minimum wage. And I'm going to do a very, very brief presentation to you about the state of play of minimum wage. But the first thing I want you to do is to take one of your feet. Do you hear that stomping? I want everybody to take one foot, and I want you to put it on the floor, and then I want you to stomp on the floor. Okay? Is everybody doing it? Raise your hand if you're doing it. Everybody stomping on the floor? Okay. What if when you stomped on that floor, your foot went through the floor? That would not be a very good floor. That's the way to think about minimum wage. Minimum wage is the wage floor. It has to be strong enough to hold up the rest of the economy. The minimum wage currently in the country is not strong enough to hold up the economy. So the wage floor is the first thing that we are going to work on together. And I love seeing this. We have so many people from different places. All right, so I'm going to open up. I'm going to share my screen. with you all. I think Cass has raised their hand. Cass, I think we don't have the capability to get you on camera to ask your question. So for today, I'm going to ask you to enter it into the Q&A, and in the future, we will be able to talk as a group because we'll set up a different webinar. So minimum wage. I'm going to just jump in. Please enter any questions that you have in the chat. I'm sharing my screen. Here we go. All right. So view slideshow. All right. Minimum wage, state of play. These are two fantastic resources. We are going to email you this PowerPoint presentation, so you do not have to write these down. I'm going to send these to you. There are two reports that I think are fabulous. One is from Brookings. It's a little bit old. It's from 2021. It's called Meet the Low Wage Workforce. If you have not previously understood the role that the minimum wage plays in the American economy and the number and types of people who are affected by the, let's stop again, the wage floor, I urge you to look at this report. Many of you who participated in the Great Economy Project got an opportunity to hear from Caitlin Henderson from Oxfam. This is a link to her report, The Best and Worst States to Work in. If you're looking for resources to get you up to speed on this universe of people, please take a look at those two reports. The main takeaway from the Brookings report is that if you are talking about the low wage workforce, which we think of as the underpaid workforce, you're talking about, sort of depending on how you measure it, you're talking about somewhere between 35 and 45% of working people in the country. Now, some states have raised their minimum wage after this report came out, so it's not quite as dire as in the report. The report labels 54 million people as being underpaid. It's a little bit less than that. But the wage floor is the opening base wage that people in America make. Those are two great resources for you. Here is what people think about the wage floor recipients. They think it's teenagers who live at home, work a little bit part-time, need some extra spending money. That was not really ever the case, but it is certainly not the case today. The folks who are working in the underpaid workforce, a lot of them are parents, many of them are adults, some of them have some college education. This is adults who are using these jobs not to make a little spending money for comic books, but to support their families and themselves. So we need to understand this issue in that way. Let's look at the federal state of play. This is one thing I will assume, I'm going to assume that y'all don't know all of this stuff, so I may give you some information that you already know. The way the Congress works is each new Congress, when it is seated, every bill has to be introduced again. And so there has been a minimum wage bill introduced in the House and in the Senate during the last Congresses. Though they get introduced, they get debated, some of them get a vote, some of them don't get a vote. At the end of any Congress, all those bills go away. And if you want that bill to be considered in the next Congress, it has to be reintroduced. So we are right now looking at a reintroduction of a North Star minimum wage bill by Senator Sanders. That should happen in the next week. Okay, so Senator Sanders is chair of the Help Committee in the Senate. That's the committee in the Senate that handles labor issues. He is going to introduce his minimum wage bill in about a week. That'll be the first one introduced in this Congress. There have been minimum wage bills introduced in past Congresses, so you're going to hear me talk about some of those today. There will be a new bill introduced imminently. But so where are we before whatever happens with that bill is going to happen? Right now, the federal minimum wage in the United States of America is $7.25 an hour. That means it is legal to pay someone to work for you for $7.25 an hour. If someone makes $7.25 an hour and they work full-time, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, they make around $15,000. So right now we are saying to people in America, if you work here in America and you work full-time, it is okay for your total compensation to be $15,000. If you look at the cost of living in every single county around the country, you cannot make your ends meet at $7.25 anywhere in the United States. Now, is it more expensive to live in New York City than it is to live in rural North Carolina? Certainly. But can you live anywhere in the United States for $7.25 an hour? No. So what the federal wage is supposed to do is to set a what? A floor that in this nation, in the United States of America, there are certain basic standards that I think I just knocked something over. There are certain basic standards that somebody has to meet. We believe that is too low. So federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. It was last raised July 2009. They introduced a $15 federal minimum wage last cycle. Okay, so last Congress, they introduced it and it passed in the House. It's the second time it's passed in the House. That bill would be at 15, had a few year phase in. They could not get it passed in the Senate. It died. Why did it die in the Senate? It died in the Senate because no Republican senators supported it. And it died because 8 Senate Democrats refused to support it. So again, we're going to email you this presentation so you will be able to have it to refer to. Here are all of the states in the country. We've got about 14 states north of $12, 30 states at the federal. 30 states a little bit higher than the federal and 20 states at the federal. This is where we want to focus. So the 20 states at $7.25. Here's the whole list of them. The thing to take away from this, though, this is why this is a politically interesting point for us to be working on this issue. Everybody in America wants the working class vote. The working class voters will decide who becomes president, who controls the House, who controls the Senate. Working class folks, again, 35 to 45% of the population, depending on how you count it. The states that are in purple, Georgia, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, all of these states are considered swing states or purple states. All of those states are at $7.25. And so the belief is here at the Patriotic Millionaires, if we put pressure on federal lawmakers and push particularly hard in these states, we can have lawmakers across the political aisle realize that it's in their best interest to come together, cut a deal on minimum wage. So that's where we are. The key states to look at here: Georgia, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I'm not going to run through these. These are all the states that are at higher. These things change relatively frequently as, cities and localities change, as ballot initiatives pass, but this is just a reference, a snapshot in time of where we are. What are they debating? They are debating the dollar amount, the timetable for phase-in, whether or not you're indexing it. And indexing means that you tie it to some other figure. So you can tie it to inflation, you can tie it to median wage. There's some debate about what you would index it to. But if you don't index it, then the minute you pass the bill, the next day it's worth less money. So indexing is very important. What has happened historically is that people on the left of the political aisle have traded a higher number to not index. So what you see now is if the last time we increased the minimum wage was in 2009, think about what's happened to inflation. So here goes that floor. That floor is sinking. That floor is pointing down. Dollar amount, timetable for phase-in, indexing, what to do about the tipped wage. Let me put a pin in this. 14C is people with special needs. How much do they get paid? And then preemption is a policy around whether or not states tell cities and localities that they can or cannot raise the minimum wage. So this is basically the areas of debate. I want to point those out to you. Here are where the dollar figures stand. Obviously, Fight for 15, which launched about 12 years ago, has had a big influence. So 15 is now the number that when activists work on minimum wage, they're aiming for 15. Now, 15 that passed in the House twice is now inadequate. So Senator Sanders will be introducing a bill that is higher than that. But that said, we don't have any Republicans at 15, and we have 8 Democrats who are not at 15. So the area of debate, the dollar amount, some people don't think there should be any minimum wage. People should be able to work for free. Some people think it should track the cost of living. In Australia, it tracks the cost of living for a man, the way it was introduced about 100 years ago, I think. A man, how much does it cost him to take care of himself, his wife, and 3 children in a reasonable state. So you can decide what you want the dollar amount, the timetable for phase in, what you're going to index it to, and what you're going to do about the tipped wage. Tipped wages are basically, think of waiters and waitresses. I am 53 now. When I was a waitress in college, I made $2.13. Legally, employers have to make up the difference between the tipped wage and the legal wage. So if you're making $2.13 from the restaurant, they have to make sure that in the hours you work, you got at least to $7.25 when they count your tips against that. We believe that's really fraught with sexual harassment. A lot of women are waitresses. Sexual harassment goes up, and it's also an easy way for restaurants and things to steal wages from their employees by not making up this. So in our opinion, getting rid of the tipped wage altogether would be the way to go. But these are the areas that you should just sit here with everything that you've learned, read your resources, and see what you think. What do you think is the right dollar amount for the federal level? This is not for your individual city or your individual town, but what do you think just the United States of America should negotiate the following wage for people who work in this country? What do you think that dollar amount? How long should it take us to get there? What should we index it to? Let's go now into who's blocking it. So our strategy at the Patriotic Millionaires is we want both. We have a 60 vote threshold for the minimum wage. That means that in its current configuration, we need to get at least 10 Republicans to get on a minimum wage bill in order for it to pass. When I have spoken to Republican lawmakers about this, they have indicated to me that there is an openness to passing a minimum wage bill, but that the right bill has not come to the floor. You're basically looking for a bill that is aspirational enough that you can get the left to support it, but it is modest enough that you can get the Chamber of Commerce to support it. So you're trying to find a sweet spot. But if your lawmakers are not talking to each other and they are not debating it, then you can't get to the sweet spot because they're not having a negotiation. So the first step in this negotiation process that we want to help facilitate is to demand the Democratic Party get on a bill. If they cannot agree on a bill, they need to get a second bill. So here are 8 Democrats who refuse to support the minimum wage bill at 15 in the Senate. I can guarantee you they're not currently going to support the bill that Sanders is introducing in a few days. So here they are. Kirsten Sinema. Angus King is an independent from Maine. He caucuses with Democrats. John Tester is from Montana. John Tester is a particularly interesting case. He's up for re-election this time. Montana is a one fair wage state. That means they do not have a tipped wage. People pay one fair wage and then you get tips on top. So the tipped wage is oftentimes where we have a problem with lawmakers. John Tester should not be in this category. He has refused to get on the bill. Chris Coons from Delaware, I point him out specifically because he is one of President Biden's closest friends in the Senate. And the fact that Chris Coons is not on the bill gives us an indication that the White House is insufficiently committed to this specific policy. If they were sufficiently committed to it, certainly the president's best friend would be on it. Tom Carper kind of follows along with Chris Coons from Delaware. Jean Shaheen from New Hampshire and Maggie Hassan, they tend to move together in a block. Maggie Hassan was up for re-election last time. She has been extraordinarily problematic. She refuses to budge on the tipped wage. She thinks the tipped wage should stay exactly where it is. She claimed to us that she would not be able to win her re-election campaign if she supported this bill. We think that is preposterous. In every single ballot initiative on the minimum wage that has ever been presented has passed. With the exception of one very, very aggressive bill last time. But in the last 20 years, all the minimum wage ballot initiatives passed, including those in very conservative states. Florida passed 15 by 60 points when Donald Trump won the state. Senator Tom Cotton several years ago. Arkansas passed a higher minimum wage during the same year that they reelected Tom Cotton. So this is a wildly popular issue. We do not believe Jean Shaheen and Maggie Hassan are right. They need some work. Joe Manchin, the highest he's willing to go is 11 and 50% on tips. On the GOP side, we have no one who is on an adequate bill. So the first step of this work is to get Democrats, to force Democrats to come to the negotiating table. So I have your first assignment, American Deciders. This week, I want you to email Sietta Candoli. Sietta is the engagement director in Senator Schumer's office. Senator Schumer is the majority leader of the US Senate. He is a Democrat. The Senate is currently controlled by Democrats. Let's go back to this slide. We have 8 people who caucus with the Democrats who are not on a minimum wage bill. Senator Schumer can bring them to the negotiating table and get a bill on the floor that these 8 folks will agree with. If these 8 folks agree with this bill, it's going to attract Republican support. We can get this thing passed. So the first thing we're going to do is politely but firmly tell Senator Schumer that it is long past time for this negotiation to happen. He needs to get his 8 colleagues on a minimum wage bill. So Stephen, we want people to write emails. So let's see, we have 65 people on this call right now. In a year, we're going to have 650, and another year after that, we're going to have 65,000. Stephen, what should they say in their email to Sietta?
This is something that I've helped with a lot, and I'm constantly doing this like every day, having to send emails to Senate offices and offices on the House and just try to get them to take our issues under consideration. Typically, my recommendation is that you start off an email with a brief introduction, introduce yourself if you're representing an organization or a coalition of people. You want to start by immediately telling them about yourself and why this issue is so concerning to you in particular. And then you want to get right into the ask. You want to include directly what you want from this person that you're emailing. So if it's a meeting, if it's a Zoom call, if it's a phone call, you articulate that in the body of the email. Say, my name is so-and-so. I have been working on this issue for a long time, so I have a reason to want to see the minimum wage raised. I was wondering if you had time for a 15 to 20 minute phone call sometime this week to discuss the issue. That's how I recommend doing it. And then for us, I mean, if I'm sending an email on behalf of Patriotic Millionaires, it helps to provide any sort of context about the organization, why they care about the issue, and really just any additional context if there's a vote coming up, or if there's some deadline for the government, funding, or if there's some just reason that this needs to get done at a particular time, you can say that. But otherwise, I just think, just get in there and be as firm as you possibly can, while, like Erica said, still being polite.
So basically what we would like for you all to do in this first email that you're sending out is we want to introduce ourselves to Senate leadership. Senator Schumer, as the head of the Democratic Party, needs to understand that people across America, across political aisles, want the wage floor to be raised. So Rebecca, you don't have to talk to them for 15 minutes. This is what we want you to do. Write an email to them saying who you are, 1 or 2 or 2 sentences. I am, Rebecca. I work at blank. I am, 50 years old. I've lived in Wisconsin most of my life. Something like that, little short sentence. And then the following sentence, I am writing to ask you to put your 8 colleagues in the Democratic Party together to come up with a reasonable piece of minimum wage legislation. I am deeply concerned that 8 Democrats are currently refusing to even support a $15 minimum wage. I want to see the Democratic caucus come together and put a reasonable wage on the table. That's all you have to say. Say, I'm part of an American Deciders group that is one of the that is a partner in progress with the Patriotic Millionaires. So get American Deciders in there and a Patriotic Millionaires. And then all you're asking is, Senator Schumer, I'm concerned that Democrats are insufficiently committed to working people in the country. There are millions of people who cannot make ends meet. We will not fix this problem until we raise the federal wage floor. You and your colleagues need to get on a bill. That's it. That's all I need you to do. right now, because what ends up happening is Stephen and his colleagues, Bob and Dylan, are in constant communication with a bunch of these offices. Believe me, he will hear from Sieta, who are these American deciders who have been emailing us. And Stephen's going to say it's a whole bunch of folks around the country who are concerned that you all need to get this wage floor raised and you haven't done it yet. And so the combination of the relationships that the patriotic millionaires have with this new symbol about what you all are doing, that comes together, that will make a difference to us. So what I want to do now is I am promising that I'm going to just keep these to 30 minutes because we want you all to come to all of them. I'm going to just look at that. I'm going to just do some quick questions. Schumer is a smart guy, so why is he not doing it? He must be able to read the tea leaves about the working class and their family concerns. I would say, given the extent to which working class voters are abandoning the Democratic Party left, right, and center, I would not say that Schumer has a great handle on the tea leaves in this circumstance. I think he has problematic colleagues and he has other priorities. So one of the things in politics is you have to make your priority the priority of your lawmakers. This is our priority. This needs to be a priority of our lawmakers. This is going to destroy the country. If this wage floor continues to be as inadequate as it is, it will destroy the country. Schumer needs to make it his priority. So that's why he's not doing it. Harvey, let's see. I was told that if small businesses pay minimum wage, they will have to lay people off. Is that true? So this is a fascinating question, Christine. If people raise wages, they do not have to lay anybody off. Now, but there may be some businesses that have dumb business models that are not going to be able to survive an increase. But one of the things that's important about this to remember is that when you do it as a law, everybody has to go up together. So just think about it. If there are 30 bakeries in the nation, and all of a sudden the price of flour goes up, but the price of flour goes up for all of those businesses simultaneously, there's not, I'm so sorry, y'all. Okay. No, I know we're going to be No, I know we're going to deal with it. So sorry. Y'all, I'm so sorry. We have an 8-year-old. So no, they don't have to lay people off. And that's the point of doing it as a law, is that if flour goes up for everybody, everybody pays the same amount of flour. And what happens in the economy is if you're paying more for flour, in other words, if you're paying more for your people, when your people walk out, they become customers, they have more money in their pocket. We have an economy that's 70% consumer demand. Let's get money in those pockets. Would writing all of the 8 be helpful? James, you're welcome to write all the 8. Okay. I think that emailing Schumer is going to be more helpful. Kirsten Sinema, for example, pays absolutely no attention to what anybody says to her ever. If you are represented by one of those people, write to them individually. If you're not represented by one of those people in one of those states, just write to Schumer. Have you looked at universal income as a possibility, making the needed increase of the minimum wage less? Fred, I think that is a fantastic question. I do not believe there's any chance of us getting this country to a universal basic income if we do not first connect business prosperity to American families. And so that's the first step. If we do that and raise the minimum wage substantially so that when somebody runs a business, the people who work for them definitionally can afford their lives, then we can look at the economy and say, okay, there's not room for these folks. Let's implement a universal basic income. There's no way we're going to get that if we haven't first gotten the minimum wage. So to me, the minimum wage is the first step. Let's see, it does look like the Democratic Corporate Rogues Gallery. Emails, yes, emails to one's own member of Congress are fine, but old-fashioned personal letters actually have more of an impact. I think both and are great. And keep in mind, we're going to be running in parallel with you all. So right now, the folks we have on the call, if you all can get these emails out to Schumer, we can take it from here. Name employment, you're part of the patriotic millionaires and American deciders concerned about millions. Yes, yes, yes. Laura, you've got all of it. Marissa, are you familiar with the Poor People's Campaign? Yes, Marissa, we are very familiar with the Poor People's Campaign and we love the Poor People's Campaign. It is 6:01. I want to be very respectful of people's time. And I've already run 1 minute over. We're going to do this 30 minutes once a month. And we're going to give you a specific assignment and we're going to tell you where we are in all of this. Invite your friends to join. We're going to email this PowerPoint presentation to you. Please get your emails out today. 1 email to Sieta. And we'll send around also the dates of the next ones. We're going to basically do the first Monday of each month. August 7th, Labor Day, we're going to miss. So we're going to do September 11th instead. October 2nd, November 6th, December 4th. We'll put those in the email to you. We will send out a presentation recording tonight, Colleen. And y'all, thanks so much. I appreciate it. We're going to have fun with this. We're going to cause some good trouble, as John Lewis used to say, and we're going to get some money in the pockets of folks around America who are working their tails off and can't make it work because the economy is structured against them. Let's do this together. American Deciders, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me know if you need anything. Email Kat or email us at gep@americanagenda.com. Thanks, everybody.